Hi, I'm really glad to be here. My name is Georg Petschnigg, General Manager and Chief Innovation Officer at WeTransfer, and this is actually a topic that we get to discuss today that's very near and dear to my heart. I love anything that deals with working smarter. For my entire professional career, over 20 years, I've been building all types of different tools for people to get work done. Spent about 10 years at Microsoft working on Office, which was all about productivity and how to really squeeze out more productivity and efficiency out of your day. While there, also had the chance to transition more and do more experimental or a new type of innovative projects. This is actually an image of Courier, which is a foldable two-screen tablet that was about exploring how the new type of work that was coming up, the creative work, how that would play within the Microsoft suite. Spent a couple more years looking at the first productivity applications on iPad with paper and pencil at my company 53, which we then sold to WeTransfer, where I'm now. We're expanding our set of tools to be about the movement of ideas. So work, productivity, and creativity have been really near and dear to me. And if I had to think about working smarter, for me, this is really a combination of working in a more productive and a more creative way. And it's worthwhile actually digging a little bit deeper on how is productivity and creativity, how are those two related and how are they different? There's a lot to be learned about it. So the first one is that when you think about productivity, that's actually the very, very easy one to identify. That is what gets you quickly from A to B, right? It's a measure of efficiency. It's easy to teach someone to be more productive. You just give them a better tool. Stop using your shoe to nail in to nail in that nail, like use a hammer. You give people better tools. You can teach people to be more productive. Also, the output of productivity is usually measured. However, the downside of productivity is that it is fundamentally limited. At some point, you reach a plateau, diminishing returns. And that's where creativity comes in. Creativity is about finding a better way. Creativity is actually innate to humans. Creativity needs to be cultivated. Kids are creative by nature, and it is about cultivating that creativity that essentially allows us to tap into the creative potential. Now, creativity is not as easily measured. However, it's undeniably that creative potential is limitless. You can expand that, and as you're thinking about the development of new services and products and work that a company and a team does, this really sits on a spectrum where productivity is essentially concerned with the now and getting things done. Creativity allows you to switch gears and find a better way. Your strategy allows you to focus, and ultimately it's your culture that allows you to decide in what type of strategies and what type of creativity you allow. So this is really, really a framework here. Productivity and creativity mainly are focused on short-term efficiency. Strategy and culture focus on long-term effectiveness. It's probably worthwhile to give an example of how this plays out in practice. Like when you think about if I think back in my time at Microsoft, I actually saw a huge cultural shift. When I joined, the era of Bill Gates was still very present. It was a culture of raw intelligence, about smarts, about crushing the competition. And, it got the company into hot waters with the DOJ, and there were claims that Microsoft was a monopoly. Well, Microsoft was a monopoly, was ruled a monopoly at that time for crushing its competition. But it also led to a limited set of growth. Like there were certain strategies of collaboration that weren't possible. That changed drastically with Satya, who also brought in a different type of creative spirit within the company, really pushed for design within Microsoft, and ultimately led to much bigger productivity gains. Peter Drucker famously said that, culture eats strategy for breakfast, and that is really what the spectrum here shows, right? That between productivity, creativity, strategy, and culture, there is a connection. Now, the two things that really are tightly interplayed here is this element of culture and creativity. Culture really tells you what types of creativity you are encouraging and are allowing. Like if you build a culture predominantly around mathematicians, right, it'll be really difficult to have non-math type of ideas, right? And there's a memo that actually went around recently from Brian Armstrong from Coinbase, which was really, really fascinating. It was a memo that particularly address questions around culture and what is acceptable to explore culture-wise at Coinbase. And if you read through this memo, like, his desire here to really focus the culture on a particular set of problems was driven by a concern around productivity. And while this might help in the short term, right, it's also clear that this will have impacts on how Coinbase can operate as a culture and along the long term, right? So there's always this struggle of like the short-term efficiency, the immediately recognizable gains that are driven by productivity and creativity, and then the long-term effectiveness and winning for the long term, which is mainly driven through strategy and culture. And here it is culture that allows you what type of creativity is encouraged. To sum it up, think about people as innately creative. They are innately creative. Counter to productivity that can be taught, creativity is encouraged. And it is culture that really then determines the types of creative and the types of creative potential that you can access. So, when you think about the different lessons that building tools for creativity have learned around how to cultivate creativity, that are few that pop up. So loosely speaking, like, creativity is when you mix one part familiar with one part new. So anything you can do in your culture to encourage that mixing, right, is what drives and brings creativity forward. And the best one of all, and the most important one of all, is really encouraging a culture of diversity. I like to say that more voices means better ideas. So how can you build an environment? How can you build tools to support multiple of thought? This doesn't just apply tools. You can also think about like HR to hire in a more diverse workforce. This isn't, this is really a measure of your ability to attract and bring in a diverse pool of ideas and thinkers, right? I like to think of diversity as sort of your potential of accessing multiple voices and multiple new ideas, right? Creating environment for flow and recognizing that there are different states and different means of how people work. The more introvert and more extroverted people, but encouraging a state of flow where people can stay in their zone. And the way to accomplish this through tools is, with the design of tools, is that you really want to provide very simple and accessible interfaces, but that allow for a path of mastery in some form. You can think of a Stradivari violin as a very simple object from the surface, but my gosh, you can really take that to a clear path of mastery. You want to build for environments that are versatile, approachable, and really expressive over the more complex and precise. Beauty plays a really important role around creativity because it gives your expressions and your work meaning and purpose. And then also encouraging a state of play. This is what like creativity and play are very closely interlinked. Oftentimes with creativity, you just have to explore the new, and you just do not know if creative ideas are going to pan out. And a mode or in a state of play really allows you to explore more and achieve more through an open mind. In this day and age, in a trend moment for work, right? And a lot of the things, when you think about the design of tools or workspace, right, is to be revisited right now because of COVID, because of a dramatic shift in terms of the infrastructure in which we get to operate. As a reminder, this is what an office used to look like. We had a table and walls that served very important functions, and today these have been replaced. Right? Today we're looking at the grid of people talking in a Zoom call. But I really want to bring the focus on well, where have our walls gone? Where does act of showing and of describing and bringing people's creative ideas together? Where have the walls gone? And we actually recreated the walls that we had around ourselves. Like, we used to have a great studio wall where we were able to pin up our ideas, and they're very powerful. And those storyboards are very powerful in that they very quickly get to create a context for the thinking that's going on, but they also get to show the type of alignment that a team is building and the type of decisions that teams are building. And we've expressed a lot of those ideas in a product called Paste by WeTransfer, and I want to share some of the learnings in the design of Paste, how it's used to bring creativity forward amongst teams and companies. So PASTE is a new type of presentation tool that is really aimed at aligning people around their ideas and bringing creative teams together. And here, one of the rules that we've been that we identified that's really huge is what we call good transparency. When we're working in separated environments, one of the things that people want to know is like, are their ideas seen? Are they heard? Is it easy to give feedback? And this notion of good transparency is one where it's very easy for anyone on a team to show progress versus setting a culture of expectation of being informed, right? So I'll contrast that with bad transparency. Bad transparency is when people feel like they need to be part of every decision, or they need to be, or they need to write status updates all the time. No, what you really want to do is essentially make sharing your work part of the day-to-day and make that as effortless and easy as possible. And PASTE, the way we do this is through a set of like smart layout algorithms and ways of where you just essentially paste in your content and automatically build slides for you. The second one is emphasizing showing over telling. When you think about endless conversations in email or in Slack, it's anytime there is a written dialogue going on, it's actually very difficult to keep track of what's happening. You pretty much have to reread an entire stream of conversation in order to make sense of it. A way to cut through that is to visualize what is happening, right? Really emphasizing the showing over the telling. Encourage people to build visuals, to illustrate, to diagram, avoid text overload. Because it's so important, again, think about the diversity of thinkers and the diversity of ideas that you can bring in. Build a tool and environment in which it's not just about text or numbers, but it could be about animations and different modes and different web services of expression, and how do you really bring all of them together. So in PASTE, the way we do this is that it supports a wide range of integrations. So, to sum it all up, if you think about productivity, it's just so easy and so alluring and so easy to identify it. And that's also why it's so easy to be offended if your sense of productivity suffers. Like, just think about how irrational people react to a slow car ahead of you, and you have to brake. People compute like how much gas they lost and how it's going to slow them down, right? But it's almost irrational to focus that much on it. And you lose sight of the fact that, sometimes these speed bumps do give you a chance to cultivate and think about your creativity. And it gives you time to think about the type of culture change you want to do. And for us, like, the pandemic that you're in obviously is a tremendous tragedy, but I encourage everyone to see also the gift. It is a chance for us to think through new ways of working, to think and try out new different modes of thought, and to especially invite in new voices that we haven't heard from, or not as much from. We right now have a chance to work on something that we really get to work on, which is our culture. And my hope is that as we think about our new and evolving cultures, that we're going to make creativity for all part of it. Thank you.